Ron Walmsley, expect more. 800-850-5054.
Restrictions may apply. Plans and cost for coverage may vary. Call Ox Car Care for details.
Honey, I'm worried about the car. It's not under warranty anymore, and we just can't afford a major repair. Sarah recommended we get an extended service plan from Ox Car Care.
What's an extended service plan?
An extended service plan from Ox covers us in case major repairs happen. Like if our transmission drops, we pay nothing for the repairs.
Oh, so if our engine blows or we need to replace the cylinders or suspension, Ox gets it fixed and we pay nothing for the repairs.
That's right. We pay nothing for the repairs.
Okay. Give me the number. I'm calling Ox right now.
If you own a car, truck, or SUV, you won't have to pay a penny to have it repaired. Just call 800-984-7127 right now to see if your car qualifies. Get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Call 800-984-7127 today and get free roadside assistance, free towing, free car rental, and free oil changes. Just call 800-984-7127. That's 800-984-7127.
The following is a paid program. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views of Radio 1, WTLC AM 1310, 92.7 FM, 95.1 FM, The Light, and its management.
Black people need to own our own businesses, which will provide an economic base. Teach our youth to become self-sufficient. Learn how to maximize our political affiliations and fight for criminal justice reform. You just tuned in to Black Power Presents with your host, Antonio Lipscomb. Come on, let's talk.
All right, Facebook family and friends, it's yours truly, Antonio Lipscomb. Got another exciting broadcast coming to you straight live from the Light, 92.7, 1310 LFM on your dial, 92.7 LFM and 1310 AM. We're just excited to have a great guest with us, Representative Cherish Pryor. Can you hear us pretty good, Representative Pryor?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Awesome. You know, I'm going to check with my Facebook family too, because sometimes they can hear us and they cannot hear us. And I'm going to try to see if I could go on my thumbs up and get my radio listening audience to make sure they can hear you as well. And sometimes they'll throw me a little heart up while I'm trying to share my groups and everything, the little technology thing we got going here. So excited to have is my good friend Reverend Brown, Thomas Brown there is with me.
I'm here. How you doing?
My faithful co-host. Everybody loves him. And so we're just
Hi, Brown.
How you doing, my dear legislator?
I'm good.
Oh.
It's good to hear your voice.
Good hearing from you.
Yeah, we're excited about this broadcast, and we want to try to make sure we can do it right this time, Reverend Brown. Last week we had a great show. I think the radio listening audience was able to hear us, but they were not able to hear our guests on Facebook. And sometimes my Facebook family, they do me a courtesy by letting me know if we can hear one another. But however we go, we do have a faithful radio listening audience to tune in each week. Representative Pryor, one of the things we talked about offline with my questioning is my concern, and I put this up in Facebook earlier today, a concern about the guns. I mean, it seems like we see guns everywhere. It's starting to become very irritating because it's almost like a cultural thing. And it seems as though there are those that are getting these guns and it's getting big. They're getting bigger. The guns are getting bigger and bigger. And it's almost like automatic rounds that people are trying to hold on to. And it just seems like it's this fad going with the bigger the gun, the bigger the intimidation. And, I'm just concerned about that. Is there anything you can tell us? I mean, I know they had something going on with the House and there was a situation where licensing was being challenged. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so thank you all for having me on. During this session, we had a bill, and that bill would have eliminated the need to have a license.
Okay. Do me a favor, Representative. Are you able to turn your volume down just a little bit?
Okay.
It's just a little echo. Just turn it down just a little bit because we want to make sure we hear everything you have to say.
All right. Is that better?
Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more if you can.
I think I cut it all the way down.
Okay.
I asked if she has the
How's that?
radio on.
Do you have the radio on?
Nope, I don't have my radio on.
But that sounds better. That sounds better. Go ahead, Representative. We
That's
got
better?
it. We ready. We ready to rock now. We ready to go.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Technology is great when it's working. It's horrible when it doesn't.
Exactly. Exactly.
So we did have a bill this session that would have eliminated the requirement to have a license.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, that bill did die towards the end of session.
Okay.
It came very close to getting passed. That is something that we're going to have to continue to monitor.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that many of us are concerned about.
Right.
It was going to be a $5 million fiscal hit to the state of Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was part of the problem with people, part of the concern with the bill not getting passed because
Right.
it's going to be a fiscal hit.
Right. Right. And so we can see that this is a huge concern because it seems as though there should have been even that more of a restraint on the licensing because we see, I'm talking about in our community, we see even mental health individuals walking around with automatic weapons. And then now we start seeing more females. It's more, I don't know if they're doing some advertisement, but it seems like it's even more females walking around with these guns.
Whether it's male or female, it's a concern.
Yes.
With those particular high-powered military-style weapons, should not be in the hands of anybody. You don't need a high-powered machine gun to protect yourself. And it just allows for that many more people to get harmed and get killed. And that's a concern that we need to be concerned about. And I will say that Moms Demand Actions, they have been on the forefront in trying to get some of this stuff changed. And we all have to come together and work together to try to make sure that people don't have guns, and if people do have guns, that they're responsible with them.
Right. Because I put up a post today. I'm going to share. Let me see if I can grab the post I had up earlier. I just put it up early today, and I stated. Let me see what I stated. I stated we have too many young men walking around with guns. Now I've got 186 responses positive in relations to that, and I have close to 100 comments of people talking, and I just put it up today. People are talking and concerned, and I say about 98% of the people that are responding are people who agree with the post, but then you have about 2% of the people who feel as though they need a gun because of what's going on in the community, and they feel like they need to protect themselves. And I understand one thing on protecting yourself, but but there's another thing on doing it, having a gun in a way that intimidates people. And they're doing it, these young people are doing it in a way to make sure they're kind of being brash with it around their waist and showing it and whatnot. It really kind of scares
how are they getting these guns? I mean, to be quite frank, these guns are not being made in our community.
Right.
So how are they getting in our communities and getting into the hands of individuals who don't have a license?
Right. Well, Dr. Brown, I hear they doing some type of fair gun show or something that they're doing in our community.
Yeah, what I was saying to you, Antonio, and to our representative, it's interesting to note that, okay, I'm here close to the state fairgrounds, and I have noticed many times, many months, and on Sundays, gun shows are held at the state fairgrounds. That's a fact, and it's on a Sunday. And you think people are going to church? They're going to the state fairgrounds. people are purchasing guns and purchasing guns. Young people, I see many of them. And Indianapolis has a good reputation of being a supportive of the gun industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand your frustration and others' frustrations, but the Second Amendment to the Constitution says everybody should have a gun. And you got to understand, in the psychic, guns are something that's been in our history, and it's also been something used to show one's power, and at the same time use it as an excuse for protection. So you and I and even the listeners,
right,
are in a period of beingness that gun is necessary, because there is a kind of attitude of violence that's historical in our nation.
Right, right.
And yes, I'm seeing young people. I'm seeing young ladies. I'm seeing, not only I'm seeing young ladies, I'm seeing older persons. Many people have guns.
Right.
And what are guns used for? Well, it's a gun that can kill you, but it takes a person to have a gun to do the killing.
Right.
Understand the psychology and the philosophy of violence that's in our mindset.
Right.
And, for our legislators, they can attempt to make a law, but how do you make a law with a law that's already prevalent in the Constitution? The right to bear arms.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, a representative part, is because we understand that people have the right to protect themselves, but I probably can't articulate it the way I want to articulate it, but it just seems as though that's not the vein or the element that's going on. They're not keeping these guns and using them in a way that would seem to be looking to be protective of themselves. To me, it comes off, and I don't know if I'm just interpreting it when I see the guns and who's carrying them. Primarily, black men, young men with the pants sagging, and when I approach them about getting a job, they act like I'm speaking a foreign language, and it's pretty scary. We require people to have a driver's license to drive a car. I can't just jump in a semi and just start driving a semi just because I own one. It just seems like there have been barriers and restrictions there to kind of help with the public safety.
I think the statement about the constitutional aspect of the right to bear arms is legitimate. And I think that I don't know that, well, there may be some people that think that there should be absolutely no guns, but I do think that people have a right to bear arms. I think it's the type of guns that are the problem. Okay. But then the other thing, too, is even if for those individuals that may think no one should have a gun at all.
Right.
And we should have a license. We have, the Constitution guarantees us the right to vote, but we have restrictions on the voting. You have to show your driver's license to vote.
Right.
If you want to early vote, you have to jump through hoops for that.
Right.
So the Constitution is a living document. And just because you have a right to do something does not mean that government does not have the responsibility and cannot come in and set some guidelines for that particular protection of the Constitution.
Right.
Because the easiest one for me is, why should I have to show my ID to vote? I shouldn't.
That's
interesting. The representative gives a unique, and I'll use the word juxtaposition there is energy focused on suppressing the vote. And then there's this other energy of not suppressing, but encouraging the gun.
Right.
Yep.
That's an interesting dynamic there, and it's in the psychic, it's in the energy of our society here in America, even in our state. Indiana has a strong advocacy for not gun control, but there's an advocacy to suppress our participation to be voters.
Right.
And the question becomes, what is driving that kind of energy in the political arena, or let's just say, is it also in the religious community?
Right. Well, let me say this. That's a great segue to see Representative Pryor. Do you mind taking callers? Because I've had a caller waiting for quite some time.
No, I don't. Can I just say
Absolutely.
say something? I think that it's more than. I think it's a fear in people in power. People are fearful of the African American community, and then the power. Power is a very powerful thing.
Okay.
And I think those two things are the driving forces. The power, wanting to keep power and suppress people, is certainly behind the issue of the voting.
Add this to your platform, Sister Pryor. We fear to love, and we love to fear.
Amen to that.
Amen. That's my co-host right there, Dr. Brown. Now listen, Lisa, I believe this is Lisa. She goes to my church. Lisa, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You got a question and a comment?
Yeah, I got a comment. Well, on the east side, I think we have the first young black male that owns a gun shop on the east side. I saw it on the news back about 3 months ago. So that may be a part of it. It's and he's very responsible with it. He's teaching people how to use the gun. Has the gun range and everything. But I just believe that since we have been under siege for a long time in our community, people want to protect themselves, even from the police, because we've been under siege for a long time. And it's time for that to stop. It really needs to stop. There needs to be peace. I've seen 3 or 4 incidents that I was just unhappy about. The police officer pulled his gun out, and there was so many people out. Everybody's just out having a good time. And they came in just sporadically, out of control type of way. And he pulled the gun out. I believe his name was Harbaugh. And I've seen that officer before. He is a good officer. But I really want them to be careful about when they pull that gun out. That man was already subdued on the ground. There was no need for that gun to be out. And a stray bullet could have been easily, a child or anybody could have easily been shot. It was at a gas station.
Well, thank you so much. Was you done, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, thank you so much for your call.
All right.
Representative Pryor, one of the challenges we have is this fine line between law enforcement, because on one hand, when we get in trouble, we're the first people to call on them. Then there's this fad with all these guns being thrown in the community for whatever reason. I don't know. Some people say, well, you should use them safely or whatever. I don't know about that. But then, then when the police come, then we got complaints about how they're policing. Now, I know that there's a gap with the communication with officers not being more so community officers, but we are calling them to solve our problems. So, I mean, I don't know how. I know this is you're a state rep, maybe this is more for the mayor and the city council, but I know maybe some of this may hit your desk at times. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it does. I still live in the city, and I still the person that votes as well.
Right.
During this session, we did have a bill that dealt with police reform.
Mm-hmm.
It did four things. It requires de-escalation training for
Right.
police officers. So the situation that your church member called into hopefully would not happen
Right.
if they have de-escalation training.
Right.
It requires, it redefines chokeholds and eliminates chokeholds in most instances, and it defines chokeholds as a lethal weapon.
Right.
Now, a chokehold isn't just a restraint; it's on par with using a handgun.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece of that legislation is it requires law enforcement agencies to have body cameras and dash cams.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last piece of that is if a police officer leaves one police department and goes to another police department,
Mm-hmm.
their records will be able to go to that other department as well, because what you find is a bad officer will leave one police department and go to another one.
Right.
And so, with this legislation, they'll be able to identify those bad police officers.
Can you
So
get?
we were-
I'm sorry, Representative. Can you give that bill? Is it House Bill? What is it again?
It's House Bill 1006.
House Bill 1006. That's something that we need to look for and push, right?
It's passed. It had unanimous
Okay.
support,
Okay.
Democrats and Republicans. All legislators, nobody voted against it. Now, I did recently hear that some police officers didn't like it. They didn't think don't like the provisions for some police officers. Because I will say this, the FOP, which is the union for the police departments, they were supportive of it, but you're always going to have a few people who are not going to support it.
Right.
But the other thing is, I think that we do need law enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
but people have a legitimate fear and concern about police officers when they're stopped by a police officer,
Yeah.
or a police officer is called on them for no reason at all.
Right.
We've been living with this long before George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, I think that we need to pass the George Floyd Law Act at the federal level, which is far more aggressive than what we even did.
Mm-hmm.
Because even with the de-escalation training,
Mm-hmm.
if the officer chooses not to follow those guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
and their contract allows them to stay on the police force,
Right.
then we have really not addressed the issue of de-escalation
Right.
with police officers.
Right. Well, that's great. That's great to know. Now, if you want to be a part of the show, 239-1310, 317-239-1310 is the number to call to get your comments or questions. Now, Dr. Brown, I was just talking with Crystal Masons, which is actually the president of the NAACP local branch here, and I'm actually on that as executive member on the branch.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a interesting point. I know on one hand, we have problems with some officers. Then on the other hand, we got a lot of great officers. I had to say that. I mean, I had a situation on this Sunday where one of our church members' daughter passed away, and I was so very pleased with the service of IMPD and the coroner and the way they handle things. So, on the other hand, you got some great things that they're doing as well. It look like we need to try to figure out how we can build on them, because there's a lot of people, as far as police officers, that are retiring because they're having such a hard time. And we're finding it hard to find more individuals who look like us to even sign up to want to be a police officer. Now, Dr. Brown, I'm going to be honest with you. I will go dig a ditch before I put on a badge. I mean, if that's the only job that I can work, I will feed my family to do it. But if there's a ditch job or a police job, I will go grab the shovel. I'm just throwing it in your hands, Doc.
Well, let me, as they would say, I hear you and I understand And then in another dimension, persons would say, I feel you. And what I'm listening and what I'm learning is we get a lot of media attention to the negativity of police officers. We get a lot of information of the negativity, even of politicians. But what about producing and marketing the goodness? You all in the religious realm have heard the word the gospel. You talk about the gospel, am I correct?
Oh, we do talk about the gospel. You better believe it.
The word gospel is a term, a Greek term. When it's translated, it means good news.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And now the bottom line is, how much good news do we get daily? How much good news do our parents hear? How much good news do our children hear? How much good news? And all I'm saying in saying that is there is so much enjoyment out of negative reporting versus having the experience of hearing good things. Now, being a policeman, I was offered to be a policeman back in, before you all were born, in 1968, 69. I was offered to be a FBI enforcer, offered to be a policeman, and I said the only challenge I see there is that I am an advocate and a teacher and a writer of nonviolence.
Right.
So I can't step into a profession that has to be violent.
Right.
I would prefer being nonviolent coming out of the movement.
Right.
Now, nonviolence is the only correction to violence. But how much does individuals or persons know about nonviolence? Number one. Number two, is there any commissions, as I would say, commission on nonviolent education and training that can go into any of the enterprises of our society?
Right.
Have you ever had a course in nonviolence?
No, that's what we've been talking about, Dr. Brown. And we need to talk with Representative Pryor, because we're putting together a curriculum for nonviolence. And we want to see how we can make that curriculum fit for those individuals. The ages between 18 and 30 of black males commit more homicides in the city than any other group. And so we want to try to figure out how we can do that. I do have Lisa on the line. Before I take her call, I want to say this. Dr. Brown, I think you would have been an excellent colored Columbo. You would have done a great job as a colored Columbo, because I know you would have solved the problem. All right, we got Sister Lisa on the line. Miss Lisa, how you doing today, Lisa?
I am well today. I just wanted to make a comment or a suggestion, actually.
Sure, go right ahead.
I know the mention earlier with regard to laws and things being in place with regard to the gun. Just a suggestion is that with regard to those ones that are carrying guns, I just think that, a periodic refresher or a course in gun handling should be required. And then there should be a periodic refresher in that gun control, or handling the gun. Those that do not have permits and are caught with those guns, I think a stiffer penalty should be applied, and it should be, that's something that should be known widely, that this is what's going to happen. There will be a stiffer penalty if you don't have a license for the gun. Those that do have a license for the gun are required to take courses. And then in order to get it, I think an in-depth history should be taken on those ones that are getting those guns, just to kind of like check it off on the board kind of a thing. I don't think really works. You need to go in depth. What's your neighborhood? What's your history with regard to, the types of surroundings that you're in? I think all of that plays a part. And we do have a definite issue with our younger ones understanding anger management, how to solve issues without the gun or immediately going to that thought.
Well, thank you so much, caller. We appreciate those comments. Now, Representative Cherish Pryor, here's the problem. I mean, this thing is so complicated to me, because on one hand, you don't want to feel like you're infringing upon people's rights, right? You don't want to take the right to bear arms from them, et cetera, right? But then on the other hand, we got the homicides, which 18 to 30 black males statistically is killing more people than any other group combined. So on one hand, we don't want to stop and frisk, because then that can turn into something different with somebody who being innocent, who legally has a gun and things went wrong. But on the other hand, you got this guy who's kind of hiding in between the cracks of the crevice of the laws, knowing that they don't have a permit, and they're branding and showing and flashing, and they can afford a gun costing anywhere from $800 to $1,200, but don't have a job. So it's like, man, how do you? And I know I got another call, but we're gonna have to hear from Cherish Pryor or Representative Pryor, then we'll take the call.
So I think it's common gun sense laws and common sense guns available to people. We don't live in a war zone. We don't live. So why should we have military-sized weapons? My grandparents, or my grandfather rather, he was a hunter. So he had rifles, but we didn't have machine guns, or military weapons to go hunting.
Right.
I think, it's sensible types of gun measures that can be done. And the lady, she had a good point. The challenge is we can't even pass basic gun, common sense gun laws in the legislature because those of us who want something sensible, it's not enough of us to get that passed. When you're in the legislature, it's all about the numbers. You have to know how to count. You have to have 56 votes in the House and 26 votes in the Senate. And currently, we don't have those numbers in order to get basic common sense laws passed.
Wow.
For individuals, in our community, we can't wait till our kids and get older. We have to start trying to do something about what's happening in our community early on. So it's really going to take, I think, more of a community approach, getting out and trying to work with these young people and encouraging them that there's a better way to resolve their issues and to live their life than walking around with a gun that's oftentimes bigger maybe than what they are.
That's true. That's true, because I've seen that. You may think that people don't do that, but that's true. They barely can get to pick the gun up. But I have Sister Shanita on the line. But before Sister Shanita, I know you're there, but just hold on for 1 second because I want to make a point. Reverend Brown, I think that we do need to put a political a point in there with our curriculum for nonviolence. I think we need to add some of these bills, this common sense bills and nonviolence that they're trying to push to kind of make it a part of our agenda. I think that would be in order. Wouldn't you think, Doc?
Oh, definitely so. Definitely, and I guess the way I'm saying it means it's somewhere out in the space center, but people do not learn. Babies are not born being violent, but in the process they learn violence in the growing process.
Right.
Why not at the same time? I go to different parts of the world in the country, and there are many cultures that do not grow with that attitude of violence.
Right.
And I won't go into that, but again, they don't have guns there. Now, the funny thing was when I was in South Africa, you could get that funny kind of gun for $10, an AK, whatever they call it. But I'm saying the gun industry is big business.
It's big business.
It's about money.
Right.
No, it's not about money. It is money.
It is money.
And unfortunately, you can get a gun in our city and many other cities. This is not just Indianapolis.
Just not Indianapolis. That's right.
No, you can get a gun. You can pick you up a nice 38 or 32. Well, now you can get them rocks, whatever they call them. You can get them for about $50 or $60.
Wow. Well, that's terrible. Hey, Sister Nita, I see you on the line. She's one of our are star members of the church. Not to say Lisa wasn't, so I'm not gonna get in trouble with Lisa. Yeah. Lisa, if you still listening, you a star too.
They're all stars.
Yeah, I want to make sure I put that out there. I
We
won't get kicked out the church.
all members.
I won't get kicked out the church representative. All right, Sister Shadida, go ahead with your comment or question.
Yes, I wanted to comment saying I love what Representative Cherish was saying and Reverend Brown was saying collectively.
Yeah.
Now, if we take both of their thoughts and put them as options,
right?
Meaning we come with the curriculum of learning, but just like Reverend Brown said, the art of nonviolence. The art of it, because it takes some discipline and self-control to learn that, right?
Right.
It's effortlessly to be angry and to pick up a weapon, period, and commit a homicide or be angry with your brother and use anything. But there should also be options. Non-violent side, there should also be options with gun training. And police should participate in the gun training process. Get involved. People should have a right to bear arms and protect themselves, because we live in a society to where 50 years ago we couldn't even purchase guns. African Americans over 50 years ago we couldn't bear arms the way we can now, and now it's out of control. So we give people options. You know, I like options, and because when you bring options to the table, we like to think that one world, one unity is going to be possible, but there are just different perspectives in life, and we just have to respect different people's perspectives. But I love the alternative of the nonviolence, which is something that you are very big on, that you are bringing a curriculum on. You're already working on this. This is something that you've been singing from the hills, and we're thanking God now for that help. But I also believe in gun training. Why not train young people how to register, have it legally, but also train their minds what they're used for?
That's right.
Because it's the gun in the wrong hands that kill people, not actual guns.
Well, you know what?
War countries.
Sister Sunita, that is a great segue. That's a great comment, and I want to thank you for your call. I don't want to cut you off, but listen to this. You can stay with us for a minute. Listen to this. James Smith says this: it all starts with the fathers. Black kids carry guns because black kids get killed every day. They want to protect themselves. The cops don't protect them. If the state or government won't, it says, would not have to send their fathers away with 20 to 50 years for nonviolent crimes, maybe we have more fathers around to teach and care for them. I can go on and on. They got us and our kids in a headlock. So what they're saying is, and when we say teaching, this comment with James Smith, he's basically saying, Representative Pryor, that the fathers are missing from the home. So you got one parent trying to do everything, and there's no real disciplinary and protector there of the family. So the kids feel unsafe when they go before other kids, and then they also feel unsafe because the police are not necessarily policing them like they should. So on one hand, we complaining about the police and how they police, and then another hand, we're saying that they're not policing like they should. So where do we get off with trying to figure out, and we just had Father's Day, how can we look at more laws that can bring these fathers back into the home to help with the responsibility of training these young men on how to take care of their, because it's one thing on hearing it exteriorly outside of your home and hoping the message would get through, but to have it reinforced in the home with the father, I think that would be helpful, wouldn't it?
I think that we need to stop criminalizing these crimes that are putting people in jail for long periods of time.
Okay.
Our prosecutor, Ryan Mears, who said that he was not going to prosecute people who had small amounts of marijuana.
Right.
That has been that has ravaged our communities and put men and women in jail for long periods of time. That helps with not putting more people in jail and people being able to stay at home with their children.
Right.
I think that's one of the big things that be done. But kids need their parents, their mothers and their fathers. They need their parents. And so, having both of them around, it absolutely helps with the upbringing of a child.
Right. So, Sister Nita, go ahead real quick with you said something. I had to jump that segue in there. Go ahead and complete your comment, and then we'll move forward.
Just completing the comment, I'm just saying how important it is to educate, just as well it is to have options, that we also educate these parents to make sure that they have insurance on their children, because you can't control the actions of others, and you can barely control your kids in disciplinary, especially single moms, and there's not a father around. That should be ahead of education, understanding your financial obligations, but also understanding the options that we have to teach our children violence versus nonviolent resolution. Thank you, Pastor.
Oh, thank you so much, Sister Shanita. She's a wonderful soul, wonderful woman. She volunteers her time for our church and does great administrative work along with my wife. They're an excellent team. Now, for the sake of moving things forward, I did want to talk to you about the American Rescue Plan on the tail end of the show, Representative Pryor. Now, there seemed to be some symmetry around helping Americans financially. Now, let me say this. I'm finding it hard to hire folks. I don't know what's going on. Man, folks is getting that first check and they like, man, whatever, And I'm like, and I'm talking to people all across the country. I'm like, hey, are you having this problem? And they tell me my problem before I even tell them. And I'm like, how'd you know that? Because I've got the same problem. So I'm like, oh, man, what's going on in America? I mean, I know you on one hand, we getting rescued, but another hand, a lot of people on the beach because of those stimulus and this and that and unemployment. And I'm just trying to figure out what's the balance. Can you help us? I'm sorry, I know I'm throwing you off here a little bit, but just tell us about the rescue. Is it going to rescue us, or is it going to put everybody on permanent vacation?
Well, it's definitely not everybody on permanent vacation because it ends. It does have a deadline. But I do want to say this, going back to the other topic. I do want to say that there are a lot of single parents out there, both mothers and fathers, that are doing their job and doing it well.
Right.
Not because they're choosing, but for whatever situation. I do want to acknowledge how that fact as well.
Right.
But with this American Rescue Plan, I will say this. I think businesses are probably going to have to pay more money to get people back to the job. But there are a lot of people that are still concerned and scared about COVID and dying. And especially if they have a pre-existing condition or they have a compromised immune system, they're concerned. And I understand that. Or if they have older parents. And so I do understand that. I do understand that there's a challenge for businesses hiring people. And I know that there are businesses are being also creative and trying to bring people back. But I think as, people getting this extra money is good. I don't have heartaches and pains about it, quite frankly, because people have been struggling for so long. This is probably maybe the first time that they've ever had an opportunity to have a breather.
Right. Well, that's something. We got Lisa from church on the line. Lisa from church, go right ahead.
Yeah. I wasn't offended by it at all. I mean, I know that you all are still trying to figure me out. Y'all don't know which way.
I know you, my homie. It's all good.
I don't know which way I'm going sometimes because the Holy Spirit moves me, and I move with it. So I love y'all, man. I love y'all. I love being a part of a church where we moving and grooving, and we need y'all. We need people to come. And we got to make this movement happen. We got to love each other. We got to live together in peace. We got to do it, y'all.
That's right. That's right. We love you too, Lisa. And so thank you so much for your call. All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. And so, far as this rescue plan, now, I'm doing my best to take care of people. I do my best when I hire people. I try to take care of them as much as I would know how to. I'm still young on the side of hiring and dealing with management of people and so forth. But I do agree the minimum wage should, definitely go up because that's just bizarre. I mean, there's no way people can feed their families or even really feed themselves with that level of a wage. Dr. Brown, we struggling, man.
It's crazy. There's no way that a person can live off of $7.25 an hour and to tell people, well, learn the skill or whatever. What job should be paying that little? I mean, some people make more in a day than what people are making a whole year. That's just, to me, that seems like to be a sin to me.
It is a sin.
That big difference between what people are making, and it's just so easy to look down on somebody for not having particular skill set. But everybody doesn't want to be all those responsibilities that it comes with being a manager and like you hiring people and having to look at someone to make sure that you're getting payroll done because their kids are depending on you in order for them to eat.
That's true. That's true. Dr. Brown, you've been silent over there. I'm sorry, man.
No problem.
I'm trying to pick you up, man. I'm trying to get you back in the role here.
Hey, you don't have to apologize. I'm listening, and when I'm listening, I'm learning. And when I'm learning, I am quiet, and I'm listening, and rest assured, there's a learning process because there's dialogue going on here. So Sister Girl Sharika made her statements, and of course, my representative is exposing what she has to face. Now, she's not a happy camper sitting inside legislature. She has to have the ability, and does have the ability, to know how to bring to the attention of her other legislators, can we do this together? Now, when I was listening to Sharika, she said we must have options, and she's so...
Yeah, Shanita. I just want to... You said it twice, so I just want to throw Shanita.
Yeah, I'll mess up people's names.
I do the same thing, Dr. Brown, but she'll forgive you. She in the church.
Yeah, I understand. Shanita mentioned we have options, and she is so correct. But guess what the challenge is? How to teach not just children, you all, is how to teach people to make the right choices.
Yeah,
unselfishly.
That's a good point.
How to make right. Every being is born into this, on this planet, and I won't go that way, but learning how to make the right choices.
Right.
And our young people, they watch how we make choices, and a lot of what they are doing is because what they see us say.
Right.
And what we do. I mean, me and James Baldwin used to work together. And that's another part of history. And he always said, he would always say, Brown, our young people don't learn by what we say. They learn by what they see.
Right. You know what, Dr. Brown? You're an educator. And while I got Representative Pryor, which I want to go on record by telling you, I think the world of you. I appreciate your honesty and your transparency and your heart. You are a phenomenal woman that stands with great levels of integrity, and we need more representatives like you, Ms. Cherish Pryor, to serve in those type of seats. Now, with that in mind, Dr. Brown, I can see a misconnection there because we ask representatives like her to serve, but we don't make it clear on what the fights are and how we can get beside her to help push legislation forward. So if we got a bill that we need more attention to, I think there's websites and there's ways that we can make this readily available so that we can, if there's a particular Republican or Democrat or Libertarian or Independent, don't matter, that we want to try to get an understanding on of how we can make things better for all communities, then we can go to those legislators that are saying no on this particular bill and just explain to them our position. Because you got to realize sometimes our cultures is different. You may have a farmhouse and our Caucasian brothers and sisters, they keep guns laying around everywhere. They eating cereal and the gun right up under the chest. So that may be just how they live. But with us, we're a little more dramatic. A white man walk up to you and say, "Hey, buddy, I gotta shoot you now," and just shoot you. Us, hey, what do you know? I all dramatic. So we different. And so how can we educate everyone so that we sit down with a Republican and say, hey, you know what? I see your point of view. I see how this affects your community. And maybe you guys are a little more restrained with guns or whatever. But our community, we've been traumatized. We've been hurt. We've been abused, neglected. We got high domestic violence in our homes, people on edge. And if they got a gun around, 9 times out of 10, they're going to use it. Maybe if we can do that, maybe we might get some empathy somewhere. I'm hoping, I don't know. I know empathy is hard to find nowadays, but maybe that might be the case if we put that in more of a detailed way and exposed it in a greater way to help them understand our plight as well. Representative Pryor, do you think that would help?
I would say that the Black Caucus, we try to educate our colleagues. And I would say this also, there are a lot of similarities between people in the rural communities and those of us in the urban communities.
Okay.
So but it's very difficult, I think, to break down those barriers because of the D and the R behind people's names.
Okay.
The political affiliation, I think, sometimes makes it very, very difficult.
Okay.
It's not until something big happens that forces, us to work together on some of those big items.
Gotcha.
I will say this also, with the gun issue, Reverend Brown said this, and he's right. It's big business. It is big business. And the NRA has a stronghold, and I just have to say this, on the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes it very difficult for anything common sense that was common sense on gun issues 20 years ago. The only thing that's been attempted as it relates to guns right now is no control, no restrictions, no guidelines.
Wow.
Very true. That is very true.
Well, she hit it on the head.
Well, that's what everybody says. She pointed us to where the nail is. We ain't hit it on the nail yet.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll leave that nail right there for next time because we have ran out of time. But Representative Pryor, Dr. Brown, you guys are always the best. I really appreciate you being my special guest, Representative Pryor. Hopefully you feel comfortable to come back and see us one day. We really appreciate you so much. All right, this has been a wonderful show. I've been your host, Antonio Lipscomb, Black Power Presents, and look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week. Peace.